Okay, we're back, and we're going to talk about the rebuilding teams in the Western Conference. Do you want to start with the sadness that is Oklahoma City?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess we have
Bummer.
to, right?
Yeah. It's a bummer. It sucks. Chet Holmgren, we talked about it on the last episode with Alex Schiffer, but Chet Holmgren is going to miss the rest of the year, or the entirety of this year, I guess, with a Liz Frank injury in his right foot. These injuries do from all, research from folks like Jeff Stotts and people that are way smarter than me in terms of knowing what, the injury history and the results of past people that have had these injuries indicates. Most of the time people heal from the Liz Frank injury. It just takes a while to heal because the bone is in the middle of the foot and it doesn't get great blood flow, and it just takes a little bit more time to get there. It's an incredible bummer. It's an incredible accident that this happened. Yeah. I don't think this indicates anything long-term about Chet. Anyone, I mentioned this on the last podcast, but anyone that's saying that like a GM was afraid to draft Chet because he is someone that might get injured while playing in a pro-am on a not great court where the game had to get called midway through it because of court conditions. It's just silly at the end of the day. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so it's an injury that has nothing to do with his frame either, right? Like there's this, if anything, the fact that he doesn't have a ton of weight, mass, whatever you want to call it, it makes it easier on your feet. So I'm so out on trying to make this about Chet and his frame and an I told you so type of moment. Completely random. Injuries happen, pro-ams, overseas with guys that are playing right now, like Gallinari got hurt this weekend. It happens. Just pump the brakes, move on. It sucks for Oklahoma City in year one, but it might put them in better position for a 2023 draft pick. I don't love thinking that way, but I mean, we saw enough flashes from Chet to know that he's going to be special and to know that, look, there have been so many guys that have missed their rookie season and come in and been dominant NBA players before. He's going to be fine, folks. Yep.
Blake Griffin, Joel Embiid. We've seen guys drafted at the top of the draft that have come in and just absolutely dominated. I'm excited to see Chet in year 2, which will be his year 1. I think that it's going to be a really exciting experience. Talking about this Oklahoma City team, though, they have a lot of really fun young guys. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a guy that certainly exists, although at this point he kind of doesn't count within the idea of what we're talking about. I have like a fly buzzing around my head right now as I try and like knock it out of the way. Shai doesn't really count in this, but it feels like he does because he hasn't really been a part of a winning team in Oklahoma City since his second year there. But it's interesting. Like everyone talks about the fact that like, oh, we have no idea how good Shai is because he hasn't played in a winning situation. I mean, here's the thing. Like Shai has played in 13 playoff games already. He's played in 2 playoff runs, both very competitive series, like with the Clippers the first year and then with Oklahoma City in that second year. He was very good in the playoffs in both those series too, by the way. Averaged 14 points as a rookie in that first year. And then in the second year, averaged 16 points playing next to Chris Paul. Like, I'm not worried about Shai at all in the playoffs. I think he is going to be a top 20, 25 player in the NBA at some point. I don't think he's quite there yet, but has a chance to make an all-star team if he takes a leap this year, but has that kind of ceiling. I'm excited for the Shai experience, even if, it doesn't quite count within the idea of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but we have to bring it up because he is their best player and the guy that they're going to predominantly build around in a lot of different ways. So every draft selection that they have really needs to be made of how does it necessarily fit with Shai? I don't put too much stock into the experience thing because that really is something you only hear the first time you're a playoff team. Once you get over that hump, you make it, then all of a sudden no one's really rattling about that anymore. So I'm not too worried about, listening to any of that or how much damage may or may not be done from the Thunder prolonging a tank for, 3-4 years, however long it takes for them to get good. Get
Yep.
good players. You can surround them with veterans who have been there. They're going to be fine, because talent at the end of the day is what wins out, especially talent who's all hitting their stride at the same time. And if there's one thing that the Thunder are really banking on with their 8,000 draft picks between now and 2030, it's that they're going to have enough assets to be able to reload to get whatever they need down the line, whether that's a veteran to help them or more younger guys or win now pieces that fit the timeline and the trajectory of the core. So if you're Sam Presti, just keep going after talent after talent after talent and try to build an identity. And I know we talked about this on one of our podcasts, earlier this summer. The identity in Oklahoma City is built around length and guys who are really toolsy but have good wingspans and plus size for their position. Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, even a guy like Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara, like just length, guys who can handle a little bit. And
it's like size. Intersection of length, size, and skill. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they used to just draft like long athletic guys, and like those guys became good defenders. Andre Robertson, Josh Eustace, they drafted Perry Jones. Like it used to be more on the length athleticism spectrum, but I think now it's like skill intersection with length and length and size, almost, like not even as much athleticism. Not to say that like Jalen Williams is a bad athlete or anything, but right. Like, it feels like it's more that like Josh Giddey has incredible positional size and skill level. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has incredible positional size, is like a 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, like combo guard. Right. So I think it's like intersection of skill and size and length as much as anything. And Giddey is like the prime example, I think, on like where to start, right? Like what Josh Giddey showed throughout the course of his rookie season is that, look, I don't know if I'm willing to call like a teenager, I think he might've just turned 20, one of the, 10 smartest players in the NBA, but he's going to be that. He might have like, just he's a supercomputer in terms of the way that he thinks through and processes basketball. And it's those are the kind of guys you want, I think, like just genius level basketball players that have great positional size.
Yeah. And the size is the big deal to me, because whenever you're a talented passer, and Josh has that with both hands, with great pace, great feel, but his ability to throw passes over the top of defenders and not be bothered by lengthy guys that might be on him, that's what's going to enable this Oklahoma City team to really thrive. If you play him at the one, he's got a huge size advantage. If you want him and Shai to be backcourt partners long term, you need to be willing to, or at least understand that Giddey's going to be guarded by some bigger guys and wings. That doesn't inhibit his vision, his ability to be an effective playmaker. I think that a lot of point guards that we've seen over the last 15 years, if they're a little smaller, you can stick a longer, really good wing defender on them, and it can give them some problems. That doesn't seem to be the case with Giddey, because his game is based on skill and vision and just this funky pace that he plays with, as opposed to quickness, as opposed to, hey, I can just get around anybody. Like it really, really like his game. It's about the fit with SGA long term, and can you surround those guys with spacing?
Yeah, and can Josh learn to shoot? Like Josh can't be a 26% 3-point shooter or whatever. No. Just can't be. Like he needs to be at least a somewhat threatening 3-point shooter at some point, and that's the next frontier of his game, right? Where he's going to have to make the jump. We'll see if he does it. I don't know if he will or not, but if he does, he has real all-star up. Like if he becomes like an actual shooter, he has all-star upside. Yep. If he becomes, less than that, but just like a reasonable spot shooter, he'll be a starter in the NBA for a very long time. That'll be incredibly effective in terms of being able to play real playoff minutes. The draft this year was interesting for them because obviously they draft the 2 Jalen Williamses. They draft Ousmane Dieng. I like Jalen Williams from Santa Clara. I think that's a really good pick for them. Ousmane's interesting to me in terms of his length. I think he's probably a little bit more of a project than Jalen Williams from Santa Clara.
Yeah.
But again, that intersection of size, skill, and length and everything, he kind of fits that. And what did you think of their draft this year?
I thought it was effective for the areas that we just mentioned. I love Chet, and I really like Santa Clara, Jalen Williams. I thought those were two fantastic fits for what they're looking for. When I look at Usman, I think of, when you have this many draft picks and you're Sam Presti, swing for the fences on a few of them. Now, trading whatever it ended up being 3 first-rounders to try to move up to get Usman, maybe a little bit rich for my taste. But at the end of the day, when you've got, a swing on Poku, a swing on Usman Jang, like those are the things you should be doing if you're Oklahoma City, because if you do that one more time and just one of those 3 players hits to be a really high-end rotation player or starter on a playoff team, then it's worth all the investment time that they've poured in. So I get it, even though I'm not in love with the player. I certainly understand the type of swing that they're making.
Right. And then last year they end up with Jeremiah Robinson Earl and Trey Mann. And I love Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Yeah.
Fantastic player. And I didn't love Trey Mann pre-draft. I actually had a better grade on Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Yep. But I'll say there were some sneaky fun flashes from Trey Mann last year. Like, he had some moments where it was like, oh yeah, like I was worried that he would have no chance at defending. And I think that the Thunder early in the season felt like he had no chance to defend, which is why he didn't play much. But it kind of got better by the end of the year, and the shooting flashes, like the weird pace that he plays at in the pull-up shooting, like all that is pretty real. Look, if he can even be a 6th man, that's probably a win at number 17 or number 19, wherever they took him. And I don't know, man, like I'm tentatively in on what we saw from Trey Mann late in the year. Like, I thought it was pretty good.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree there. I think when you're looking at evaluating guys like Mann, like Giddey, like any of these number of young guys, it's going to be really difficult on the defensive end when Oklahoma City doesn't have a ton of rim protection. I think we saw that catch up to them last year. I worry that with Chet being out, it's harder to know who a really effective defender is going to be in the type of scheme that they want to play when you're missing a guy like Chet Holmgren. So while the injury that he suffered is really devastating for him in his rookie season, it just challenges the evaluation process of a lot of these younger guys. I love Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I think he was a fantastic get, and some of the most underrated parts of building a roster is just going out there and getting really solid, dependable basketball players. I think JRE certainly is that, but he doesn't provide the type of rim protection. He's a small ball 5 if that's where he's going to be playing. And it's a very different type of defensive scheme and coverage and just mentality that you have when you're on the floor and, Chet Holmgren's behind you as opposed to Jeremiah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. We have to talk about the last guy here. It is someone that is near and dear to my heart. Pokuism is one of the core tenets of the Game Theory podcast. It states that there is between a 0 and 100% chance that Aleksej Pokusevski is going to be an effective NBA player. I enjoy watching Poku. He is inexperienced, definitely. It's clear that there's talent there somewhere. How effectively it all wraps together in a package that makes a reasonably impactful NBA player, I don't know. But where are you at on Poku? This is an important moment in your game theory, your game theory career here.
Yeah, I love the experience. I love watching. I call him a shot no chaser type of player because that's kind of the mood that I have to be in to really dive in and enjoy watching him sometimes. Yeah. But it's from a developmental standpoint, it's really hard with these well-rounded toolsy guys to know which one of their skills is going to pop most in the NBA. What develops to be his signature. And that was always a thing for me when evaluating Poku pre-draft, is I saw these flashes of of handling, of length, of shooting on the move, pick and pop, creating his own shot, all of these different things that he does okay. What is he going to do really well enough to become a signature guy? And I thought his role in the NBA is always going to be challenged by what develops first. And we're 2 years into this experience, and I still don't really know what the answer to that is. So loving the experience. Glad I bought a ticket to the ride. Don't want to get off yet, but I don't know what the hell it is that we're doing.
I don't either. I love the player. I don't know. He's a fun player. He is. Look, like he's 7 foot tall and he can dribble, and like his lower half is not that weak. Like he has, like, it looks like put on weight through his lower half, which could help him become more functional in the way that his game works. He has no idea where he should be defensively. He makes wild plays offensively that, like, off the dribble where, like, you're like, oh, this is a 7-footer pulling up, and wait, this isn't normal. This is cool. But then he shoots like 30% from 3 half the time, and he can pass, but then he throws like some of the wildest fucking things you'll see on planet Earth. He's like not good at NBA basketball right now. There is a world where by the time he's 24 years old, he is very effective if the shot comes along and the decision making like slows down a little bit. I would continue going down this road for sure, because what else are the Thunder doing right now? Like, why not? The thing that there's nothing good that comes out of the Chet Holmgren injury, but it does open up minutes for Alexei, and I'm fascinated to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think anytime you're an organization, you've got to resist the urge to just get a new fancier toy and dive into that only. That they've spent the last 3 years accumulating intriguing young players. There's only so many minutes to go around. You've got to find ways to figure out if the long-term development for these guys is really going to pay off. And in order to do that, you got to be able to give them minutes consistently. So that's the one thing here, whether it's this year or next year, that the Thunder are going to have so many young players on their roster. It's really hard to separate amongst each other when you're all fighting for game reps. Like, I think back to a guy like Theo Maledon, who I was pretty high on. He's had a roller coaster of a career thus far, and it's not just due to his own production, but because you see a guy like Trey Mann come in and be really successful right away. You draft Josh Giddey. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an all-star type of player with the ball in his hands. What does Maledon do to augment that group? How do you develop him in any of those different ways? Just feels like he's been leapfrogged. I think there's still value there. I buy into Maledon in the right system and circumstances. But again, it's kind of the danger of accumulating so many good young players at the same time, which is somebody might end up being a miss just because there's not enough time to hit on everybody.